AP Art Historians. You are looking at card number 44, which is the Colosseum. We'll talk about why it's named the Colosseum today, but back in the day, it was the Flavian Amphitheater, and we'll talk about why that is. Built in Rome, Italy, one of the most famous monuments from the ancient world. And this is Imperial Roman, built between 70 and 80 CE, and it's made of stone and concrete. And that concrete is probably one of the most important innovations. It's what allows the Romans to build to a larger scale than a lot of what the Greeks did, and that's going to help them to put these kind of buildings all over the Roman Empire. Okay, so get your ID. Here are a couple different shots of it. One from the side, how it looks today, an elevation of it, which is this one right here. Pen out. So elevation, so you can see the seating arches as you go, a lot like we would see, FedEx Field today. And then this is what it would have looked like in its heyday, right? So obviously complete all the way around. There would have been an a subsystem underneath it to be able to go up into the floor, much like a theater today. And then the main floor where people would have watched. And we'll talk about the seating and all of that kind of good stuff as we go. Let's see if I can make it work. Okay, so this is, again, amphitheater here is coming from the idea of two theaters, right? Two Greek theaters put together facing each other, right? So that's amphitheater for your vocab for that one. This gives us the oval-shaped kind of stadium feel to the Colosseum. The inner ring was made from concrete. The concrete is much cheaper than marble, right? And it would have allowed less time, skill, money to quarry, transport the buildings, all that. Whereas concrete, you just mix it and then it hardens and goes exactly into the shape that you want it to. And so that's really what makes this kind of a huge innovation. The outer ring, the external wall, is made from what's called travertine, which is a limestone. And so travertine would have made it look a little bit nicer, right? So concrete doesn't look all that great, but if you put travertine blocks on the outside of it, it looks a little bit like marble, and it wasn't quite as expensive as marble. We see lots of vaults, specifically barrel vaults. That's when you take the arch and you just lengthen it out. And then, of course, arches, right? Arches are another Roman innovation that allows for kind of the spread of the weight of above it to be kind of evenly distributed throughout, versus a column, right, or a post and lintel idea, right, where it's just this, all you can really do is this top part and then this, right? And if you build like that, you can do it pretty well, but it won't give you as much strength. Whereas the arch, the physics of it allows it to distribute some of that weight throughout, and that really helps. Each row of columns represents an order. So if you look really closely here, we can see there's a Tuscan order, the Ionic order with the scroll work at the top here. And then these columns right here are Corinthian order. So a little bit more fanciful as you go up the Colosseum. It held between 50,000 and 80,000 spectators. So again, it's about the size of FedEx Field today, probably in the same condition, honestly. And it's 187 feet tall, which is the same as a 12-story building. 600 feet long by 510 feet wide. That does give us the little bit of the oval shape to it. Okay. Definitely put concrete in the vocab. We got vaults, arches, amphitheater. That looks good. Oh, Tuscan, Ionic, and Corinthian. Okay, notice up here, it has function next. So jump over on your card over to the other side to try and find the use of this. So this was used for public entertainment, right? Very similar to today's sports stadiums. And this would have been used to entertain the masses, right? So Romans would come here to watch popular entertainment like gladiator fights, wild animal fights, mock naval battles. The Romans could actually flood the floor of the Colosseum with water, and then they would put boats on there, and they figured out a way to move the boats and be able to reenact naval battles. This is given the Roman or Latin term panem et circenses, which means bread and circuses, right? It's the idea of the Roman emperors kind of entertaining their population with food and entertainment, right? To kind of like distract them from all the things that may be going on. All right, pause and get whatever you need to on this one. All right. So some of our content. So we can kind of see four main levels, which can really kind of be thought of as registers. Levels one, two, and three were pretty evenly spaced with the arch window, around the entire circumference of the amphitheater. The fourth level was a solid exterior wall, and there were no windows on that fourth level. Statues would have been placed in each of the archways on levels two and three, but not on level one because that's where people could go into the amphitheater. Above the fourth level, the upper rim, it was lined with bronze shields and spears as decoration. And then in the middle, we see here the flat stage, the center, right? There was sand in the center to absorb blood and other bodily fluids from fighting. And and again, it could be flooded for mock naval battles. There were trapdoors underneath to be able to allow things to pop out. All kind of that under the stage area was called the hypogeum. And it included animal pens, trapdoors, a network of tunnels, everything to support what was the entertainment that was taking place on the floor of the Colosseum. The top level also had a velarium, which was a retractable awning that could cover the area. It didn't go all the way across, but it went like kind of around to be able to shade the spectators. There's not one in this recreation here, but it would have kind of stuck out probably, about like this off of it and then around. And they would hire sailors to pull the rigging on it. The three different orders of the columns, which were used to support the arches, the level one were the Tuscan, right, which is very similar to Doric. We're going to define that. We saw Tuscan columns with the Etruscans, and so that is really this Etruscan influence. I already mentioned level two are your Ionic, and then level three Corinthian. Columns are sturdier, more basic at the bottom, with becoming more delicate and ornate higher up. And this could have been associated with the fact that women sat in the highest level of seating. And there was definitely a socioeconomic status to who could sit where in the Colosseum. So it's similar to what we have at FedEx Field or wherever. We have, the nosebleed seats are the cheap seats, right? So if senators and patricians would be on the bottom in those areas on the bottom here, there would have been a special spot for the emperor. So again, this area right here that has like all the white cloaked folks, those are togas, and so those are for the senators, right? And then next up, you could have had just your general population of men, right? So general population of men who were Roman citizens, so plebeians, lower than the patrician class. And then you would have up here, there weren't really like box seats at the top. It was more so just for women and then slaves or servants who would have also been able to go to the games, right, and could have sat up here. Okay. All right. Oh, yeah, here we go. I think I say some of that in the context too, but construction begins in 70 CE and it goes until 80. It takes 10 years. Again, concrete is the main factor there. The original name was the Flavian Amphitheater. It's named for Emperor Vespasian, who was the first emperor of the Flavian dynasty. So he builds the theater as a gift to the people of Rome to win their favor back after the greedy, insane, and unpopular Nero. So he was the emperor before. And then the building is finished by Titus, who is his successor. The Colosseum is a nickname given later, probably because of the proximity to, there was a large statue of a sun god, Apollo, and so the Colossus, right? So Colosseum, it was right next to it, and so that's maybe where it came from. We see this concept of urban planning, right? So like, how can you modify the land to become an important part of and a fixture of the Roman city? And this is really important. So unlike the Greeks who kind of went around the geography, right? Oh, the Acropolis, and we're going to build our city on this high hill. Romans just bulldozed, even though they didn't have bulldozers, but they just took down the land, and it was definitely power of man over nature. So better engineering within the concrete and the arches. This reinforces Roman social status and citizenship. Again, discrimination was largely in Rome based on citizenship. If you were a Roman citizen, that's what mattered. If you were not a citizen, like a woman or a slave, you didn't have very many rights, right? So social mobility was very difficult, but it was a little bit less so than ancient Greece. You definitely had freed slaves, like the Veti brothers, who we talked about, who became wealthy doing merchant and trade work. And so that was a possibility. It just wasn't as common as maybe it is today. People were seated in amphitheater seating according to status. I mentioned, okay, so upper class patricians, close to the stage, lower classes farther up, women, slaves, and foreigners farthest away from the actions, the cheap seats, right, the nosebleeds. All right. And then again, this reflects Roman order, discipline, and power to be able to build such a great thing in 10 years. And now here it is standing 2,000 years later. Pause to get what you need for context. And there I am with it. And that's my picture of the elevation. Yay. Today, yeah, you can get down into the onto at least the floor there, but we didn't go down there. All right, works you could compare to. Hopefully, right away you thought of the Athenian Agora, right? So another civic space, or used for a civic space. The Apodana of Darius and Xerxes, because it's just combining of elements, right? So we had those orders on top of the use of concrete, right? So innovations in other ways and kind of combining the ideas. And I think that's it. Sorry, I'll go back just in case. So one more time, the Athenian Agora, that's that one. And then up top, you've got the Apodana of Darius and Xerxes. Okay, I got a couple of vocab for you, and then we're done. Yay. I'll disappear myself. All right, so amphitheater, number 55. Again, this is Greek for double theater, so two theaters put together to give us this oval shape. A Roman building type resembling two great theaters put together. The Roman amphitheater featured a continuous elliptical cavea around a central arena, right? And here are a couple Roman, so this is the theater, so theater idea, right? And so you smack two of those together, and that's how you get the oval area and the whole thing around it, right? Here are two other, I think this one's in Nice in France, maybe, or maybe it's Spain. I can't remember. And this one's in Croatia, I'm pretty sure. So two examples from all of the places that the Romans conquered. Pause to get 55, amphitheater. And I promised Corinthian and Tuscan. I just want to see. Okay, good. All right. Yeah, this is the last one. Woohoo. All right, so Corinthian and Tuscan. Corinthian is your more ornate order. You can see a double row of acanthus leaves, right? So that's what this is right here. And this is the Corinthian order was used a lot more by the Romans. It was developed by the Greeks, but used more by the Romans. And then Tuscan was much more Etruscan and very similar to the Greek order, but it was often made of wood. It was unfluted and it has a base. The Doric wouldn't have had a base like this. And then the Doric would also just be plain at the top, no like ridge or anything like that. And then sometimes fluting on the Doric, of course, as well. Fluting when there's the lines and it goes in. Okay. So go ahead and get Corinthian and Tuscan. And that is it for number 44, the amphitheater.